that Boston team was a bunch of bullies
I
on
hate
the ice.
Boston.
They
Can I swear on this podcast?
go ahead.
Fuck Boston. Let's just get it out.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Brews and Brews Reviews, the show with cold drinks and even colder takes. So last episode, we did a little hockey goalie episode with two of my Ontario buddies who are both goaltenders, talking about Montreal Canadiens, Carey Price, and Marc-Andre Fleury. It's a great episode. If you haven't seen it, make sure to go check it out on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. But yeah, so we're here today with Max Trummer, who's a longtime friend of mine and a former teammate at UBC Track. So Max was a great runner back in the day, great teammate as well. You know, Max has worked for the Vancouver Whitecaps and has more recently started his own track club based out of Vancouver, Cleves High Performance. They are one of the most exciting track clubs in BC. You know, here in Vancouver, the running scene is pretty hot. We're going to get into all that and a little bit more, but I think we got some brews to review before we get into all that. So Max, do you want to tell us a little bit about the drink of choice for today's episode?
Yeah, of course. So obviously we want to be a local with BC Brew. So we got with us the Phillips Blue Buck Pale Ale. You know, I'm not gonna lie, this isn't my favorite beer, but it's always a solid choice. You know, if someone offers you a Blue Buck, you don't turn that down. You know, that's a very solid beer for someone to give you. What do you think about that, Jake? That's like a solid gift if someone gives you a Blue Buck at a party.
Oh, 100%. You know, someone comes to your Christmas party or Thanksgiving with a 6-pack of Blue Buck, and you're always better for it. You know, like you're never going to be worse off with a Phillips Blue Buck in your hand. So I've got the cans here. You know, you can see that it's a little blue. You know, not a female, it's a male deer. I guess they're called bucks, aren't they?
Yeah. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Yeah, I got the bottle. Same thing.
All right, awesome. So he's got the bottle, I got the can. We're gonna try these out. One sip, everyone knows the rules. So
rules.
There we go.
Cheers.
Cheers. So it's just about 1:00 in the afternoon, Tuesday, July 13th. I haven't had anything to eat today, so starting the day off right. You know, a little bit of Blue Buck. I got some meetings later, so hopefully this stuff stays in my system later. I can get through those work meetings a little bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're gonna go right into it, but I like this beer. I think it's nice because it has that smooth kind of taste, but it's not boring either. You know, you give it a hint of an aftertaste with some flavor to it.
Absolutely. This isn't just your basic like ale. I mean, there's a little bit of an aftertaste, kind of a meaty feel to it. It's not boring. It's like it's a little bit darker, you know, like a little bit of hops in there, but not as so much to that it's like one of those ales that you take a sip and you're like, oh, this might be an IPA. But no, this is a nice one. I want to say like maybe in the 7s. I think it's definitely better than like a 6.8, 6.9. I might go with like a 7.6. I'm really liking this one.
7.6. Yeah, I mean, Jake, I think I'm gonna go bold here. I'm gonna go 7.9. I quite like this beer. I know I was giving it a bit of hate earlier by saying it wasn't my favorite beer, but honestly, having that sip now kind of brought back some good memories, and It kind of reminds me of Moosehead Lager. For all the Ontario people out there, it has a bit of that Moosehead feel. I don't know if you agree with that. Maybe it's just the fact there's a buck and a moose and they're kind of similar animals, but yeah, I think you can compare it to maybe a slightly craftier version of Moosehead Lager. Moosehead's probably a little lighter, but similar feel. So I'm gonna go 7.9. I think this is a solid beer.
I like that. Okay, and then 7.6, 7.9. I'm gonna go. I like your review, so I'll weigh heavy on your side. Let's go with a 7.8, 7.8
It's a high
altogether.
rating. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm a big fan of Moosehead, Ontario guy myself. Takes me back. It's got a Moosehead will always have a special place in my heart. It's always the beer I was drinking out on the cottage country. And yeah, so there we have it. Phillips Blue Buck, 7.8.
Is that the highest ranking so far? I mean,
No.
you had Caribou and Bowen Island or something like that, right? So I feel like it has to be pretty high up there.
Well, I believe I gave the Steamworks hazy pale ale, sorry, the hazy IPA, the Steamworks, it was in the 8s. I think it was like an 8.6 or something like that.
Like a 10 doesn't exist. We can all agree on that. Like you can never achieve a 10.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things have to go right, and it's a lot of luck. It's like, yeah, depends on how the reviewer as well, their preferences. So I don't know. Maybe one day we'll find a 10.
Maybe one day. Still looking. Yeah, should we get into some of the topics we want to connect about today, Jake?
Yeah, let's talk about so both you and I are coming from track backgrounds, having run cross country and track at UBC. I won't say I'm the most in touch with what's going on in the world of track right now, because there's just so much to review. I mean, ramping up for the Olympics, but there was a certain amount of controversy going on, I think, just because of the recent bans that have taken place for a number of different reasons. So we're going to get into Sha'Carri Richardson in a bit, but I think we want to start off with Burritogate. Let's get into the Shelby Houlihan situation. So Shelby Houlihan is an American record holder or was. I'm not sure if her records are still standing. I think they probably will be, at least some of them.
I think
but
so.
So she tested positive. So she's an American record holder for the 5K and the 1500, I believe, or maybe just the 5K.
5K, yeah.
I think just the 5K, right? So Shelby Houlihan runs for Bowerman Track Club. Probably, is it a bold statement to say the best track club in the States and maybe the world? I mean, they produce some of the best middle distance to long distance athletes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bold statement. I would definitely say for sure in the States, you can't argue that. It's for sure the strongest. The only reason I have that caveat with the world is, I'm sure there's some crazy Kenyan or Ethiopian clubs somewhere in the Rift Valley that are just pumping out star after star. But definitely, I would say it's the most popular track club. If you ask any track person, can you name one track club that still exists today? They're going to say Bowerman, 100%.
Right. Anyway, so yeah, so probably the hottest track club in the States, Shelby Houlihan, and she's maybe one of the best middle distance runners they have. So it was a big deal to see Shelby go down. And what I actually realized when I was looking her up and preparing for the podcast, so because the Olympics got pushed back a year because of COVID, so we're having Tokyo 2020 in 2021. Her 4-year ban is actually a lot worse because it will extend to beyond Paris 2024. So she won't be eligible for these Olympics or the next Olympics. And that's pretty much an end to her career because she's getting older there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say an end to her career, but if you think about how the Olympics are the biggest event in athletics and track and
Yeah.
field, you have to think that's going to impact her sponsorship deals, things moving forward. She might have to transition to the roads to have some kind of similar impact financially for herself. So you're definitely right. Being banned from 2 Olympics, that's harsh. But we'll talk about if it's deserved or not.
Yeah, I mean, definitely pretty harsh. You hate to see it. I mean, as her Olympic dreams basically just crumbling right in front of her. Basically, all she's trained for her entire life. You never want to see that happen, but I mean, rules are rules. So she tested positive for nandrolone earlier this year, and so the common excuse is, you ate tainted beef, tainted meat. So what she said was it was a pork burrito that she ate um, out of a burrito truck, and it was a little bit weird because apparently she didn't even order pork burrito in the first place, but they had to substitute it out. There was a problem with the order or something like that, and I don't know. She was claiming that she kept like a meal log, like a just tracing everything back, and but it seems like not a lot of people are really believing her explanation. Max, do you want to talk a little bit about why people are harboring these skepticisms?
Yeah, for sure. I think what's important to note too is while I would say quite a few people are skeptical of her excuses, whether they're true or not, there is quite a few people who are backing her up. Most notably her teammates, of course, but a lot of people in the track community think she has been done wrong. But it is a very suspicious story. You buy a burrito from a food truck, you can't trace the food truck. We don't know where the food truck is, so that adds a little suspicion. Also, her claiming that she didn't even order pork, and that it was like a mistake, and then maybe she had some pork in there, she just didn't realize it. I mean, it's also a little suspicious too. I mean, meat is meat, but still, the story just kind of gets a little more suspicious as the more she goes on, right? And I think we have to remember too is that she got banned and then appealed and then lost that appeal. So it's not necessarily like she's been accused and we're all waiting on the verdict. The verdict has been done, right? She lost the appeal. She received a 4-year ban. Um, and, I think, sport is flawed in so many ways. We all know that there's so many athletes out there who, they always peak at the right times. They always perform when they need to. And it's a little suspicious with their timing. And you always feel like, oh, like they're just going to get caught one day, but they haven't. And, you wonder how pure is it, like sport in general, particularly track and field or biking. So when I see federations like, WADA and doping agencies go hard on this and deny appeals, I think they're the experts. They're not perfect, far from it. But if they're going to put a ban on someone as notable as Shelby Houlihan and keep it, that's pretty damning to me. I don't know about you, Jake, but I'm definitely team lock her up. I think she should be banned for 4 years. I think doping, there should really be no leeway of that. If you dope once, how do we know you're not going to dope again? And you're always going to have the benefit from that doping for the rest of your career in some ways.
It's very true. I mean, I agree with you. I think we should leave it up to the experts. We got to let them do their job because that's what they do. We're just kind of commenting on the sidelines, but it's tough to see it because with all the potential she had, and like such a strong athlete, such an elite talent from such a great track club. I mean, if you're right, I mean, if they're going that hard on the ban and they're banning her for 4 years, one of the top talents in all of American track and field, it must be pretty serious, and the evidence must be pretty serious there. You know,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I hate to say it, but I was a big fan of Shelby. You know, I saw her success. I mean, she was dominating a lot of the races in the past couple of years, and I kind of noticed that. I followed her on Instagram, and I just kind of I really like, because track and field is an individual sport, so you don't see a lot of, uh, especially in professional track and field, like the people that you train with and are in your same training group and clubs. They're your teammates, but they're also your rivals. You're competing against them for Olympic spots and national teams. And so you don't see a lot of the sort of camaraderie and team atmosphere that I was seeing from Bowerman. And the Bowerman girls they were all together all the time, training together, hanging out together. And I kind of got swept up in it. I was thinking, like, this is such a like a positive atmosphere. There's a lot of negative stuff, that we've seen in track and field, in terms of women's body images and coaches, pressuring them to uh, obtain a certain body type. And, from what I was seeing from Shalane Flanagan and her athletes, and the sort of camaraderie I was seeing in the Bowerman girls, it just seemed super positive to me. And I just hate to see it come crashing down like this.
Well, you bring up a good point, and I think we need to remember too. And I don't want to put on my conspiracy hat, but we all know the saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. We saw it years ago with the Nike Oregon project, when a couple of their athletes got implicated in some doping scandals. Just to give some context, Nike Oregon project was probably the biggest club while it existed, bigger than Bowerman. And same thing, a couple of their athletes got implicated with some doping scandals.
Biggest in what time scale? Because Oregon was probably the most dominant in, would you say, the past 10, 20 years?
Yeah, past 10, 20 years. I mean, we're talking about like just the Oregon project, though, of course, right? So
Yeah.
it just seems to me like this happened before with a different Nike club. Bowerman's done a good job at separating themselves from Nike Oregon project, which doesn't exist anymore, after some coaching scandals and some doping scandals from within the ranks. But to get back on topic, like, this really makes me feel like, why are we giving some leeway to a different Nike group, which now has several of the old Nike Oregon athletes competing in it. um, you know, I'm not going to accuse anyone of doping. I do know a couple of people personally in that club, who I think are amazing people and incredible athletes. But it does beg the question to me, how clean is that club? Do you think if one athlete is doping, is that a personal choice? Or is the coach unaware? Because I find it hard to believe that a coach, if he was a part of that, would say you're doping, but you're not doping, So stuff to consider. What do you think? Do you think that this could be the beginning of the end for Bowerman, Jake? Or do you see that this is a one-off within the ranks?
Well, I'm definitely a little bit skeptical, because I mean, it's no surprise that all her teammates supported her, because they're her friends and her teammates, and they train together and they hang out together. So it's only natural for friends and teammates to support one another. But I don't know, it kind of begs the question. Like, I remember Justin Gatlin a couple years ago had sort of a similar scenario, and he got banned for a short time, but he came back. And I think he even had a similar excuse. Like, he blamed it on tainted meat. Like, like, how many athletes are going to use the same excuse, right? How many times are we going to hear the same thing repeated? And I don't know. It's like, I watched the Icarus documentary on the Russian doping scandal on
It's a good
Netflix.
one.
Really, really good documentary, by the way. I don't know if you've seen it, but when Lance Armstrong came out and said that he hadn't doped, and then it came out that he had doped after that Oprah Winfrey interview. Everyone's saying like he got stripped of his medals, and after years and years of denying that he had used performance enhancing substances. He's stripped of his medals, but everyone else in those races was doping as well. It just begs the question, like, how deep does this whole conspiracy go? How dirty is running? And I mean, back a couple of years ago, we would have had the same thing. Like, no one knew how deep it actually ran, this whole doping thing, because apparently everyone was doping in biking. I'm sure they've cleaned it up now, but it's it really breaks your heart, like, as someone that has followed track and has been involved in track competitively for many years, and I'm a big fan of the sport. It's just like, but who can you really trust at this point?
Yeah, I agree. It's disappointing, because one of the reasons people love biking and track is it's a very pure sport. There's no referee decisions. There's no teammates that can screw up the game for you. If you're the best athlete there, by most accounts, you will be the winner, and you should be the winner. And so, definitely takes away from the purity of the sport. Um, Shifting gears to maybe a larger story that's breaking out that I would say is very mainstream now amongst people is Sha'Carri Richardson getting that ban, a 1 month ban from the sport over testing positive for THC. Big story, crazy, and blowing up everywhere: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, the dark web, and anywhere. What do you think about that, Jake?
Right. So Sha'Carri Richardson, just for some context, is probably the fastest American 100-meter sprinter on the female side.
Yeah.
And so she came out of LSU. She broke a bunch of NCAA records. She was slated to at least probably make the podium, if not maybe win it all. Who knows? You never know when it comes down to it. But the fastest American sprinter tests positive for THC, which is a banned substance. And, I think the big controversy is the fact that it's THC, so marijuana is not a performance enhancing drug. It is not, it does not benefit you in competition. It does not benefit you in training, working out, recovery, whatever it is. So it's kind of weird. People are surprised that it is banned, and that athletes are getting in trouble for it. But the thing is, so rules are rules once again. And so you and I, having competed in the NAIA and U Sports for a couple of years, there's drug testing in from collegiate athletics all the way up to the Olympics, and every track athlete knows. Like, I remember at UBC, we would have we'd have to complete these webinars online every year talking about marijuana. THC is banned in competition but not out of competition, so there's a window that you can play with if you want to play with fire a little bit. So it's not a performance enhancing drug. So it's kind of a dumb rule that it is banned. And she was going through some stuff. I think one of her family members actually passed away. Her mom passed away, and she was using marijuana as a coping mechanism. But I mean, the rules, you still broke them, and you got to suffer the consequences. It's terrible that that happened to her, but I mean, she knew the rules and she still broke them. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you hate to see it. I also think she's a very exciting athlete to watch.
100%. I mean,
And I
she's
think a
so,
lot,
you can see it when she competes. She's so passionate. When
for
she crosses
sure.
the finish line, she's like pointing everywhere and screaming at the top. Her facial expressions are actually pretty crazy.
Yeah. And yeah, no, she's something that the sport of track and fields needs. She's charismatic. And let's be real, most track athletes are pretty vanilla, pretty boring. Doesn't really matter what event you are, they're not necessarily the biggest personality. So she was definitely a breath of fresh air. Um, and I feel for her because she is an amazing athlete. As you said yourself, THC, that's not going to make her necessarily any faster. So I don't really look at it the same way as I do with Houlihan, where you wonder, could she have gotten that record without drugs? I don't know. Like I think with Sha'Carri, it's like there's no doubt that with or without THC, she's basically the same athlete. Um, and one reason why she was pretty down was I believe that the family member that died, her mom, wasn't actually the mom that like took care of her and raised her up. I believe that was her biological mother, who she didn't actually know either at all or very well. And essentially, a reporter told her during the interview, "Oh, by the way, did you know that your biological mom died recently?" So she didn't actually know, um, basically, that woman at all. She didn't even know that she died. Essentially, a stranger told her that your birth parent passed away. How do you feel about that?
Mid
Um,
interview. Oh, that's terrible.
which
It's
is
brutal.
brutal. But I'm fully on your side, Jake. I agree. Rules are rules. It's a dumb rule. Perhaps the punishment doesn't fit the crime. But THC, there's certain events where it actually could be helpful. A marathon, it could, or a race walk, it could be used as something to alleviate the pain. Um, Possibly in the sprints or maybe some of the field events, it might calm the nerves. Um, I'm not saying that changed anything. I stand by that. I think she would have ran basically the same with or without. Um, but you can't necessarily say, oh, it's useful here, but not useful here, so it's allowed, right? If it could be helpful anywhere in the sport, and give someone an advantage that's possibly unfair, it needs to be accounted for. So she knew the rules. She had a good reason, perhaps, but good reasons don't necessarily equate to the rules. So um, yeah, it's unfortunate. That's all I can really say.
Yeah, it's terrible. Well, we hope and pray that she comes back stronger and she can come away from this whole experience. I think the other side of the story is so her 1 month ban would have been up in time for her to be eligible to compete for the 4x100 team at the Olympics. But the USA Track and Field didn't want her on the team, so she wasn't selected to compete for the 4x100, even though she is the fastest female 100-meter sprinter. So whether that is because she won't be there to train, like with the baton handoffs and everything, that does come in, that is a factor that does come into play with these relay events. Or they just didn't want her on the team because of they couldn't trust her to pass the drug tests. I'm not really sure. It could have been either of those. In my opinion, it's hard to really gauge.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of saw it as a statement from the U.S. Track Federation, USATF, that someone has a 1 month ban, and by a day or two they're eligible to compete for a team. For that next person in line who is, as far as we know, clean, that's a bit of a fu to them. Just saying, hey, we don't care that this person fail the drug test. As soon as they're ready to go, we'll take them. So I think it was a statement. I don't know if I back it up or not, but you also have to think too, would Sha'Carri be in a good headspace when she went there, having kind of missing out on her main event? Could she have been a negative energy on the team and the atmosphere? Possibly feeling bitter. We don't know, but yeah, you have to consider all these things too. So yeah, it's devastating. It's unfortunate. But I totally agree with you. She's going to come back stronger. And watch out for her at the next Worlds, because I think she's going to have a chip on her shoulder for sure.
Yeah, she's going to come back with a vengeance. At least that's what we're hoping for as fans of the sport. So let's shift gears a little bit and move over to something that happened more recently. So let's get into the soccer, the whole Euro final. So Max, I know you're a big football soccer fan, however you want to call it. I know you've got a little bit of more European heritage in you, so you probably have more more of a right to call it football than I do. I grew up playing soccer, but always in Canada here, and I played a little bit, couple tournaments over in the United States, but so the Euro final just happened after, what was it, 55 years without an international final berth. The England national team qualified for the Euro final, but unfortunately to British fans, they weren't able to win that final against Italy. How do you feel about the whole game and how it played out?
Yeah, and just to address your earlier point, soccer, football, it's all good. If you're gonna say soccer, you gotta say like SAWK, like soccer. Like
Soccer.
that's the real American Canadian way of saying it, and I think it's awesome. But um, I'll be very honest from the get go. I'm a very biased fan. I'm not pro Italy, far from it. I am just anti England, and not even anti England team, because I really like a lot of their players. I am anti England fans. I think the English fans, while to them it's probably very funny and kind of a meme, but they're probably some of the cockiest and most entitled fans out there. Look, there's worse fans, there's violent fans, there's racist fans. You could be a lot worse. We might actually get into some racism later about the fans on that point, but just all the it's coming home. I feel like every time there's a major tournament, people are like, oh yeah, this is England's year. I think it's not unfair to say they're the soccer version of the Maple Leafs. I would say that's a very good comparison.
I like that comparison.
You like every team wants them, or every team wants them to fail, and I strongly believe that unless you were from England, if you're from Scotland, Ireland, Wales, France, Germany, whatever, I believe almost every country was rooting against them. And I think that's just brought on by their fans. But let's just talk about the game real quick.
Well, hold on. Just to piggyback off that point. So coming into the match, I kind of, over the past couple of weeks, obviously England was doing pretty well. They made the final. I was kind of like of the standpoint, okay, I'm going to cheer for whichever team has the least annoying fan base.
Mm-hmm.
And, at first I was like, okay, I'm going to cheer for Italy because all I've heard over the past couple of weeks is it's coming home, da 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 da.
Yes.
It's okay. I'm going to cheer for Italy because this British these British soccer fans are so annoying. I don't want to hear it's coming home. But then you look at Italy and it's just like Italy is in so many international like soccer finals. It's just like you see them everywhere. All you hear is Forza, Forza, Forza. So I kind of I was on your side for a little bit, but I realized, I mean, they're both super annoying fan bases. So I was sort of cheering for England. I kind of got swept up in the crowds. You know, it might have been special if they won it after all these years. So I don't know. I feel like they both have pretty annoying fan bases.
I think that's a fair point. I will say this, you see it a lot with these European teams. They've, Europe, just like Canada and US, very multicultural countries, so most of their teams are very ethnically diverse, whether it's people who immigrated there later, refugees, or people who their grandparents or whatever came from different countries, and, they've been, their families been there for generations. But, England, for example, fairly diverse team. It is mostly white, but it has 3 to 5 African Americans on it, African English people on it. Sorry, and there was a lot of controversy because, as many of you guys know, this game was a 1-1 game, went to extra time, didn't end after there, went to shootout, and in the shootout, England was on top for a bit, and they had the opportunity to take that lead and win the game. But they missed 3 penalty shots in a row, which, just being transparent, is awful. That is
Right.
awful.
It is bad. That is very bad.
But all 3 of those that were missed were by African English players. And so post game, there was an incredible amount of racism, be it on social media, be it on the streets. And, I'm condemning the English fans for this now, but, we've seen it before with Mesut Ozil, the German national team, for being, a Turkish German. We've seen it on the French national team with all their kind of, team members from Algeria and other parts of Africa. Oftentimes, they'll say it themselves, when they do well, you're like, oh yeah, that person's English, that person's French, there's no difference. But when they play poor, immediately it's like, oh no, that person's African, that person's Muslim. So I would say, one thing that is a black mark on this tournament, which overall was an amazing tournament, going through COVID and bringing back fans to the game, is that racism aspect that I think was actually quite large. What do you think about that, Jake?
Well, it's obviously terrible. I mean, this kid, what's his name? Rashford, was he 19, 20 years old?
He's young, yeah.
He's very young, and he's first time on the international stage, and he's got his got people calling him racial slurs, and it's terrible. You never want to see that. It's completely unacceptable. I mean, it's sport is here for our entertainment, but I mean, these people are human beings. Like, it, people forget. I mean, it's something you don't. I mean, I won't say you don't see racism here in North America, because obviously racism is very present in modern day society wherever you go. But I mean, the passion of soccer fans in Europe is just complete. Like, there's so much history and culture that revolves around football, soccer culture in Europe, and we just don't have that here. We don't have the same soccer culture here in North America. It's like they have all these rivalries, and people are, they paint their faces, and I mean, we have like the MLS over here and everything, but it's nowhere near the same kind of rivalry and history that goes on in those English and European football clubs. And it's just I guess it's just a different culture, and fans are so passionate over there. I'm not excusing anyone for acting racist, but it's just, it's a different soccer culture that they have over there in Europe.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and you hit the nail pretty hard. You don't want to justify anything poor just because of passion. I mean, you can be passionate but still make awful choices or whatever. But soccer culture, I think, brings out the best and the worst in people. I think we can both agree it is the global sport. It's super accessible, and I think it does, for the most part, bring people together. But you see all these stories of either racism or kind of the soccer goons who just do lots of fights. And cause havoc. So yeah, it's a problem with the sport. I think they're trying their best to address it. Maybe not the best that they can, but they're trying to fix it a bit. Did you watch the game, Jake? It was a pretty
I
good
did.
game.
Yeah. So let's talk about the game itself. Let's move over into the actual sport itself. So England scored what in the first like 3 minutes or something?
Really fast, yeah.
Super fast. It was a really nice goal. So I thought they were just going to park the bus, you know, put all their players right in the penalty box and just kill the rest of the game, kill time. But Italy managed to score. I think it was off a corner kick or something like that, or maybe a free kick.
Yeah, it was a bit of a dribble in. It wasn't a purely set piece, but yeah, they had a kick in, and were able to dribble it past the goalie, in a very crowded box. So as you said, they did try to crowd the box. Soccer's interesting because of all the formations you can have. But England switched to five in the back, meaning five of their 11 players are playing defense right in the box. And it made it really crowded for Italy to get some good chances. So to be honest, it was a very lucky goal. I think England did really well at keeping Italy at bay for most of the game. But yeah, they tied it up, which made it a really interesting final.
It was interesting. And that whole park in the bus thing, I hate it when that happens. I feel like it just kills the game from an entertainment standpoint. It's not fun to watch because and I'm a little bit of a hypocrite saying this because growing up, I used to be really into soccer. I watched Chelsea all the time, and Jose Mourinho was known for just parking the bus
Jose, yeah, that's a
in important
strategy.
games. Yeah, but I mean, it's it's a smart strategy to take because when you get a one goal lead, you can just put all your players in a defensive position, and there's really no way to get in there because the box will be so crowded, whatever, so many bodies in front of the net. Um, and I feel like that's kind of why a lot of North American fans kind of like talk down on soccer because it's a low scoring game. It's much lower scoring than obviously like basketball, football, and hockey, and this just makes that even more so. I mean, you can have a very low scoring game in soccer and it can still be very entertaining, but I mean, from someone that's maybe hasn't played the game as much, um not an avid follower, someone from the outside looking in, like a one score game is not that much to get excited about.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when people try and play results driven football over spectator friendly football, right? And let's be real, if they parked the bus, it was a boring game, but they still won, no one would be hating on the English team, at least their fans. No English fan would get them any grief because they just wanted that title.
Right.
First major title in 55 years, something like crazy like that. So
Is it ruining the game a little bit? Is it bad for the sport, like that sort of results driven type of strategy?
well, look, I speaking as a bandwagon Italian fan or just an anti-English fan, let's say, I was obviously very frustrated watching that game, being like, "Wow, like they're not giving us any chances. This game's so boring." For it was for a bit because nothing was going on. But um, where I the one where was my if my team was in the lead, I wouldn't care. I'd be on the edge of my seat, just being like, "Hey, like hold the lead," So
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
it goes both ways, and you have to remember too with these European clubs, much different in North America. It's a club, it's not a team. So you're loyal to your club. Oftentimes you grew up either playing soccer there, or maybe you're on the track and field team of the Bayern Munich club or of all that. So oftentimes these clubs have multiple sports arms attached to them. Your family's been cheering for them for generations. It's a lot more community focused than our franchise teams are here. Um, and that comes with some problems too. But these clubs are less worried about making the most entertaining game and more focus on, we need to win titles, we need to stay in the top league, we need to perform well. So is it a problem based on our perspective that we're kind of used to in North America? For sure, because if you want to grow the sport and it's boring, you're gonna have a tough time, and that's what the MLS is trying to change, and they want to try and make it as interesting as possible. But in Europe, you're born into this world. More likely than not, you have a club as soon as you're born. Your club's decided for you, so I don't think it's going to really impact the sport too much at the epicenter of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We're just, it's like we said, it's just a totally different culture, soccer culture here in North America than it is in Europe.
Yeah. And, I think you can say the same. Like, we have to give kudos to the English team. I think both teams, it was a story of redemption. England having ever made a final in so long, finally coming up clutch. And, they didn't let a goal in until the semifinal, and that was off a free kick. So there was no goals off open play against the English national team at the European tournament until the final, which is nuts.
That
And
is pretty remarkable.
yeah, it's amazing defense, amazing goaltending, very good team mindset. And then with Italy, we have to remember, Italy did not qualify for the World Cup in 2018. They didn't make it, and they're one of the best soccer nations in the world.
Right. I remember that, and fans were outraged. I remember, obviously soccer's huge in Italy, and people were just totally disgusted. Italy fans especially.
Well, imagine if Canada didn't make it to the Olympics for hockey, or it didn't make it to the World Juniors.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's the same feeling. It's like, this is our sport. Why aren't we there with the best?
Exactly.
But Italy, similarly, they were on a crazy winning streak. I believe they went 25 plus games unbeaten. Only like 4 or 5 of those games and goals scored against them. So both these teams had chips on their shoulder. England, after that devastating semifinal loss in the World Cup in 2018 and never making a final, and Italy having missed out on the World Cup in 2018, having not really been clutched for the last 15 years or so. So, as much as I hate on the fans, these are both very likable teams that, at the end of the day, I wouldn't be too mad if either of them won. But of course, I'm glad that my team, or my bandwagon team, did win.
Yeah. So staying on the topic of soccer, so Max, you worked a little bit with the Whitecaps in the past little while. Do you have any commentary on the state of the Whitecaps, our homegrown Vancouver franchise here in BC?
For sure. And if you're listening, you won't be able to see this, but if you're watching, Jake has a really nice Whitecap scarf in his background. So I'm definitely loving that. Yeah, no, I'm a loyal fan to the Whitecaps. I'm always gonna cheer for them, and if I can, I'm gonna watch their games. Hopefully live soon. But I'll be very honest, the team is probably in a state of disarray. Poor management, poor coaching, poor transfers. I believe 2 years ago they were second last in the league. Last year they missed out on the playoffs by a couple spots. And this year they started off really well, and now they're back at the bottom of the league, which is frustrating. It's everyone accepts that there's gonna be 1 year of rebuilding. But if you're seeing that year over year with no improvement, that's very frustrating to the fans. And I think Canucks fans can connect. I think just the Vancouver sport franchise curse.
I will say this. I mean, we did have a pretty devastating year as Canuck fans, going from high expectations, going from the second round of the playoffs to, not even making the playoffs, bottom of the North Division. But we did get pretty devastated by COVID and injuries and everything. I will say, while the results don't really show it, I think the Canucks are on the upswing. They're on there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, there's some amazing prospects and people who either haven't joined the team yet or who've joined the team the last 2 or 3 years who are still young and can develop. I mean, Hughes, Pedersen,
Brock
Brock,
Besser is
Scherzer,
one
yeah,
of the honestly, I will say this: Brock Besser is one of the most exciting young players to watch in the NHL today, and
that's
that's not
bold.
even a hot take. Like
I think that's
people,
bold of you.
people love to watch him.
I will say this: he seems like a great guy. Every time I see his stuff on social media, it seems like he's doing some kind of nice thing for either the community here or community back at home for him. So, yeah, likable guy. Um, and I give English fans a lot of grief, and they deserve it. But I think we need to be honest with ourselves. I think Vancouver fans, whether you're a Whitecap supporter, whether you're a Canuck supporter, on average, you're a bad person. Like Vancouver fans are the worst. I think
Little
they're
bit of self-deprecation here, maybe.
self. Do you mean do you disagree? Do you think Vancouver fans are among the best fans?
I would, okay, definitely not the best. I mean, would you be saying this though if it wasn't for the 2011 riots?
Yes, I would be saying this regardless. The 2011 riots definitely exemplified that.
That's like the cherry on top, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's look, I mean, we saw this year Montreal was rioting too and destroying their city. I think not even like after even after they beat Toronto in the first round, they did a little bit of rioting, and that was during like the lockdown wasn't done. They just went out and like smashed cars and all that. So look, rioting happens. It's bad. But there's always been crazy sport fans that do that, and there's not really much you can do other than getting that law enforcement out and doing what they do. But I just think even take that out, take the rioting out. I think Vancouver fans think of Luongo. 1 week everyone is praising Luongo. Nobody he can do anything wrong. Best goalie in NHL. And then the next week, we're all making memes of like a beach ball going past in the net. I think Roberto Luongo, for those who don't know, a long time Canucks goalie. I think he still might be on our payroll. I think we bought him out, but he's still getting paid by us. But
He's still getting big money from the Canucks. Yeah.
yeah, but legendary goalie, one of the best that we've ever had. Definitely done really well with Canada as well. But I think we were awful to him personally.
I think so too. Every time we won a big game, it had nothing to do with him, and then we lost. It was all his fault. It was terrible. He definitely had a rough go in Vancouver.
Yeah. But I see the same thing with the Whitecaps. I think people, rightfully so. If you're spending money and it's not entertaining you, maybe you don't want to go watch a game or you don't want to pay for a game, whatever. But the fans are very entitled, very aggressive. And I see a bit of the same in Vancouver. We always kind of wonder, why haven't we won a cup? And I think we're very hard on the management, on the players. I think we're wishy-washy. You didn't really see much about Canucks fans this year. And then, last year there was still COVID, but we're all like parading around, because we're the best team. And, hate on Montreal as you want, but, they're going to cheer on their team, win or lose, they could be the bottom of the league. If they beat Toronto in the last game of the season, they'll be out on the streets rioting. So maybe rioting is an indication that you're a good fan. Who knows? But a bad person, but a good fan. But I just think Vancouver fans, and myself included, but a little flaky and a little entitled. Maybe that's too far, but that's just my hot take.
That is a hot take. I like it though. We love a little bit of controversy here on Brews and Brews Reviews. But I will say this, it's never okay to tear down your city after a loss. Like that's the worst form of a sore loser. But I mean, losing in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final at home, getting shut out and losing 4-0. That is just brutal. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I've been asking this. I've been thinking about this a lot recently, actually. Like, if you were, I mean, I was way too young to know what was going on at the time. I was at home, watching it, uh, dealing with the grief in whatever ways you could
Yes.
as like a 10-year-old kid. um, but I mean, imagine being downtown and it's Game 7 in the Stanley Cup final. You got your Canucks jersey on, and you end up getting more than disappointed, just humiliated in your own hometown. And Boston, I will say, I mean, they did win the cup, and they've been pretty good, pretty consistent the past couple of years. But that Boston team was a bunch of bullies
I
on
hate
the ice.
Boston.
They
Can I swear on this podcast?
Go ahead.
Fuck Boston. Let's just get it out.
I like Milan Lucic as a homegrown Vancouver kid, but I mean, that whole Boston team just bullied the Sedins. They didn't get any calls from the refs. They just completely just I don't know. It was just goon hockey. It wasn't hockey. It was just a bunch of goons pushing the smaller, um, less dirty Vancouver team around, and it was just, and we lost 4-0, and it's no excuse to riot and tear down your city. But I mean, I thinking like, if you were a young person downtown Vancouver, humiliated by this like dirty Boston team, I mean, I feel like it would be pretty hard not to get swept up in the whole mob mentality kind of thing.
Well, I was a young fan in downtown Vancouver when we lost the final. Yeah, I exactly as you said, had my Canucks jersey out with my buddies. We were there to watch the live showing. Didn't expect 500,000 or whatever people to show up out of everywhere to come watch the game too. But you're right to an extent. I would say less so that people had the urge to riot. But I think when people started doing stuff, smashing cars, going in the shops, a lot of people, or I shouldn't say a lot, nobody stopped them. I'll take some responsibility. Like, I was just straight up watching them, just being like, wow. And I think that's the thing with mob mentality is like, half the people there, if not more, just watch, just want to see what's going on or curious. And then maybe a third or quarter, whatever, actually the ones doing all the damage and all that. So I think we all saw it coming. I'm not going to lie. Near the end of the game, we all looked at each other. We heard it from everyone else in the street. People were like, oh, yeah, there's going to be a riot. It was a foregone conclusion. And as you said, it wasn't a close game. It wasn't an England-Italy kind of outcome. It was an embarrassment. Like, we got embarrassed.
We were humiliated
At
in
home.
our own home city. Yeah, it was terrible, but you know what? That's really no excuse. Vancouver fans need to be better.
I will quickly add on to this. But Milan Lucic, as you said, homegrown Vancouver boy. Pretty sure he's disowned Vancouver since then. I'm pretty sure it's because of some Vancouver fans, that he says, I'm not from Vancouver anymore. I don't consider that home. And there might be more to that, maybe something on the personal side too that we're not seeing. But I think we can't deny that the fans are aggressive fans to a homegrown player did that to him.
Right. Yeah. I think I actually read somewhere that he was at a Greek festival, like a music festival or just like a carnival kind of thing. And some random Vancouver fans just recognized it was Milan Lucic and knew that he won a comp against us, and they like tried to fight him or something at the festival. And first of all, like,
Stupid.
NHL hockey player. Second of all, probably the most feared tough guy in the league. Like, you don't
Big
third of
mistake.
all, homegrown Vancouver kid, like it's a game. It's literally a hockey game. And once again, Vancouver fans, just you're right. We need to be better.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I know we're trying to wrap up soon, but I think we should spend at least 2 or 3 minutes just going over some of Canada's Olympic hopefuls for the games. Um, if you had to name one of the free athletes from Canada in track and field, of course, our sport, who you think have a chance of taking home the gold, who do you have?
Right. Okay. So going back to track, well, the obvious names that come to mind, characters that have been in big time uh, world championships and Olympic finals. Melissa Bishop. I'm looking for Melissa to do well. Probably, it's probably a foregone conclusion that she'll make the final of the 800. Being one of the best there is. I really want to see her make the podium because she just missed out on it last time. There was the whole Caster Semenya thing. Couple African women with hyper androgenism, sort of keeping her off that podium. So hopefully, hope to see her doing better this year. Mohamed, 5K guy, 5K. Is he 5K, 10K?
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully he's going to do well. He came third at World Championships. So, actually him and Justin Knight, they're both
Don't sleep
incredible
on Justin.
athletes.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Don't sleep on Justin.
Don't sleep on Justin. Who else is there?
DeGrasse, man.
Andre DeGrasse. He's kind of so Andre was so he won what was his silver medal in the 200 meter
And a bronze in 100 in 2016.
and a bronze in 100 in 2016. So he made quite the name for himself. Everyone knew who Andre DeGrasse was. Everyone was watching him, but in the past couple of years, I feel like he's sort of been overlooked. He's been dealing with injuries. He's been out of the spotlight for a little while. But yeah, I mean, Andre obviously has the potential to be elite, to be in that top tier, and yeah, hopefully, hoping to see him rise above the challenge.
I agree, and I'll go bold here. I think Andre DeGrasse medals, and that shouldn't be a bold statement, as you said, because he did so last time. But competitions might be a little tougher now. There is no Bolt, sure, but I think it's a very deep field. So, I think he's going to come through. I'm going to go bold. I think Andre DeGrasse medals, and UBC's own University of British Columbia, her own Evan Dunphy, in the race walk. Look, I don't know anything about race walk. Honestly, I'm sorry, Evan. I could care less about your sport, but you're a very good athlete. You were very good at your event. You were so close last time. I believe you were fourth. And every week or month, I see some article on UBC being like Evan Dunphy, new record, treadmill record, road record, track record, whatever record. He's just crushing it. He's getting better every year. This man lives and breathes race walking. Like, if I think of race walking, I think of Evan Dunphy.
There we go.
Yeah. So Evan Dunphy, if you don't know who he is, look him up. Guy's a bit of a legend. So yeah, Evan Dunphy, you're gonna medal for Canada, and you're gonna make UBC and your country proud. And I'll just give shout outs. If anyone you want to shout out at the Olympics who's competing this year, Jake?
Absolutely. We've got a couple former teammates at UBC from the distance side of things in track and field. We've got John Gay, who has been to a world championship in Doha. I believe that was last year.
Yeah.
Or maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2019. Yeah. 2 years ago.
2019. First Olympics. Shout out John Gay, and we hope to see him do well in the steeplechase. And shout out Luc Bruchette as well. Also qualified in the 5K. So we're looking for those two guys to represent UBC and the Vancouver running scene in the best way they can.
Totally. And quickly on the female side, shout out to our former teammate of ours, Natalia Hawthorne.
Natalia.
1500. Natalia, Luke, John, you see them put in the work all the time here in the community. It's grinders, no other way to put it. Just grinders. And you love to see it. So watch out for them. I think they all have a very good chance of moving on either to the semis or the finals or whoever their heats are structured, just because they're competitors. So I'm looking forward to that, and it's great to see.
Yeah, amazing to see this Vancouver running scene just kind of blowing up right now. 3 Natalia, John, and Luke all going to the Olympics, UBC athletes. Vancouver running is in a hot spot right now.
You love to see it.
You love to see it. All right, well, thanks so much for joining us on the show, Max. It was great to have you.
Great to be here. And if any of my takes were too hot or too accusatory, just edit them out.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Sounds good.
All right, appreciate it, Max.
Thanks for having me. See you guys.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. So in the next couple episodes, we're going to be introducing a new segment called Question Period, where I answer fan questions about sports, movies, music, or give general life advice to you guys, the fans. So make sure to send in your questions to my email, which will be provided in the description, or drop a comment and I will answer them on the show. And we've got a great couple of episodes dropping soon. We're going to be going over the NBA Finals, which just concluded, talking this year's Olympics. And for all the Marvel fans out there, we're going to be reviewing the different Spider-Man movies and ranking the different actors who've taken their turns playing the web slinger over the years. So as always, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to stay notified of my future videos.